Welcome to the world of water. So what do we mean by sustainable water supplies? Definitions of sustainability vary, but here are some aspects of sustainability that most people would agree to. First, we recognize that water is a valuable and precious resource. Most of the time, water is plentiful, but there are limits to how much water is available and can be withdrawn safely. Secondly, we must plan on meeting the needs of today's population and the needs of future generations. Thirdly, during periods of drought and hot weather, less water is available and people use more water. Climate change also can affect how much water is available and how much is used. This tells us that we must be prepared for droughts and possible climate change. Fourthly, we must maintain and improve infrastructure. That is, we need to construct wells, reservoirs, water treatment plants and pipelines. And we need to protect the environment. So how can we protect our aquifers and ecosystems? The following 3 slides show some important challenges to sustainable water supplies. This diagram illustrates the situation about 1 mile from the center of pumping in Champaign County, a few miles west of Champaign, and before large amounts of water were pumped from the aquifer. The blue box at the bottom represents groundwater stored in the Mahomet Aquifer under Champaign County. Dark blue signifies high water pressure. The top of the box represents the top of the aquifer. The aquifer recharged slowly and groundwater flowed ever so slowly from east to west. When a well was drilled into the aquifer, high water pressure in the aquifer forced groundwater in the well to rise above the top of the aquifer. Decades ago, when the first well was sunk, high water pressure in the aquifer caused groundwater to rise about 160 feet above the top of the aquifer. Today, more than 30 million gallons of groundwater are pumped from the Mahomet Aquifer in Champaign County each day. Water pressure has decreased, shown here by the lighter blue color, and the water level in wells has dropped to about 80 feet above the top of the aquifer. In order to supply more than 30 million gallons of water each day, groundwater flow to the west has been reversed, and water is now drawn from up to about 20 miles around the wells, and more water is drawn from streams to recharge the aquifer. So let's see what could happen in the future if we continue to pump more and more water at that location. This is the Big Bang, a warning of what we absolutely do not want to happen. As more and more water is pumped from the aquifer, water pressure could decrease further, as noted by the even lighter blue color, and water level in wells could drop below the top of the aquifer. When groundwater level in a well drops below the top of the aquifer, water is removed from the top portion of the aquifer, and that part of the aquifer is dewatered. The white shows that there would no longer be water in the top part of the aquifer at that location. Water quality would deteriorate, pumping would become more difficult, and the properties of the aquifer would change. More groundwater will be pulled in from neighboring counties, and stream flows will be reduced. These things have never happened here, but we know they have happened in the other states, and we want to prevent them from happening in east central Illinois. Once we know what we don't want to happen, it becomes our responsibility to make sure that this never happens. This critical situation can be avoided by monitoring water levels in the wells and by water companies and city councils taking management action to keep water levels above the top of the aquifer, including water conservation, and by spacing pumping wells further apart. As you can see from this map of Lake Springfield and the proposed second reservoir, Hunter Lake, construction of reservoirs necessitates flooding thousands of acres of land and building dams. So expanding surface water supplies also has its own challenges. This aerial photograph shows Lake Decatur. Over time, soil particles are eroded from the land and move downstream as sediment. Sediment builds up in the reservoirs and decreases the depth of water and the amount of water stored in the reservoir. This is happening in Lake Springfield, Lake Vermilion, Lake Decatur, and Lakes Evergreen and Bloomington. As water storage decreases and the demand for more water increases, sediment can be removed by dredging, by enlarging the reservoirs, or by building new reservoirs, but all options are very costly. A key challenge in creating sustainable water supplies is to weigh benefits against costs. You, your families, and future generations all benefit from having reliable and adequate supplies of clean water every day. On the other side of the scales, there are financial and environmental costs to providing these benefits. It is expensive to drill wells and build reservoirs, water towers, water treatment plants, and pipelines. These costs are passed on to you and me, the consumers, in the form of water and sewerage charges. Do you know how much your family pays in water and sewage charges each month? And there are always environmental impacts associated with these activities, such as lowering water levels and flooding land. A goal in water supply planning is to maximize the benefits and minimize the costs. This can be done by examining a variety of options and balancing competing interests. This is at the heart of planning for sustainable water supplies, and where you can make your voice heard. So I encourage each of you to be informed, search out information and ask questions. Get involved with sustainable water planning. Don't leave it to others. Each of you can help shape the future. And only use water that you need. Conserving water reduces costs and helps protect the environment. One important step you can take is to develop a water conservation plan at home. Here are 5 things each of you and your families can do to help ensure that we always have sustainable water supplies. And you can save money. You can install low flush toilets that use less water. Similarly, you can install low pressure shower heads and take shorter showers. When you wash clothes, make sure you set the appropriate water level for the amount of clothes you are washing. Only run the dishwasher when it is full, and don't leave the faucet running at home, at school, or at work. Finally, I would like to thank the many people in these organizations who have contributed material and advice for this presentation. You can access additional information on the Mahomet Aquifer Consortium, the Regional Water Supply Planning Committee, and the Illinois State Water Survey at the websites shown here. Thank you. for your interest in our water resources.